Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Tough Table Talk. Tonight, we're going to be diving into Black pride and Black accountability. Now, normally, my father, Pastor Marriner, will open us up with prayer. In his absence for this evening, I'm going to do so, and we're going to dive into this conversation, and I'm going to introduce our two powerful guests. So let us pray. Dear God, we come before you thanking you for the opportunity to have this opportunity to speak truth to power. We thank you for everything that you have bestowed upon us, all the knowledge and light that you have given us up to this point, and the wisdom to use that to your benefit and to the benefit of those around us. We pray for guidance in this moment so that this conversation may lead us somewhere beneficial for ourselves and for everyone we come in contact with. In your name we pray. Amen. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our two guests for this evening. We have Dr. Karen Jewett. She is an author, an educator, a wonderful mother. She has been one of the pillars here in our church for a long time. We also have with us a youth minister out of Hampton, Minister Larry Gibson. We appreciate you for being here with us as well. There was one thing that was told to me about you, and I appreciated this descriptor. It said that you are a mix between Martin Luther King and Louis Farrakhan. And then when I was talking to some of my friends, my brother, about this, he said, yo, where do you find somebody like that? Man. It's a powerful moment. So like that being said, not to put anything on you, we've been having a conversation, and from being able to talk to you so far, this has been powerful. So let's go ahead and dive into what we have for tonight. We're going to be talking about Black pride and Black accountability. So first off, I would like to give you all a moment, just like any opening statements on that, on our topic for tonight. Any opening thoughts on Black pride and the Black accountability? Dr. Jewett, let's start with you.
Yeah. Okay. With Black pride, I often think about how great our culture is and those things that we have accomplished through those who were before us. And I'm proud, very proud, to be part of that. It's just wonderful when I see young people and what they're doing, and those are proud moments for me. When we talk about accountability, that's something that I feel very strongly about, that we as a people have a lot to do, that we have some accountability that we need to own up to and some things that we need to work on.
Minister Gibson, what about you?
There has been always in my life a wanting to know more than what people were telling me, even my parents. Never my teachers. No one ever directed us to who we were and where we came from. Mm-hmm. It was always, in my youth, feeling out of place and out of time. And when I posed a question to elders, they would just wish me away, you know. But there was always this inner struggle about wanting to hear, you know, because when we were growing up in our era, if you call someone African or call someone Black, you'd have got punched in the eye. You know, we were disengaged, you know, from our originality because we weren't taught it. Black people in this country have never had the opportunity to name themselves. We call ourselves Black Americans now, but that didn't even come from us. That came from somebody else. And they've always engaged us. We were called colored, Negro, you know, Black, you know. So whatever was thrown out there, we just embraced it. But we didn't really know what to do.
All right, so we having this Black pride conversation. Let's talk about some of these things that needed to be reclaimed. What are some things that we see, generally speaking, that we still have to be proud of today?
I think, well, for me, I'm proud of the academics. I'm proud of the inventions. I'm proud of every time I see someone who looks like me, who's doing well. I'm very proud. When I think about even in history, a lot of times, as Minister Gibson was saying, there were things that we weren't taught. And the more I learn now, the more prouder I am, because I felt like I was duped. I was misled. I wasn't told things. And whether it was intentional or not, I felt like, and I still feel like, I am not who I'm supposed to be and where I'm supposed to be because of the lack of knowledge. But so when I see and hear of things that we have done and that we're doing, that makes me proud.
When I started delving into finding out who we were as a people, I started feeling good about us the more, because I've always embraced us no matter what our stance was in life. You know, I had to come to a place where I recognized that even in, school, we weren't taught who we were. So when you talk about Black history, even to a lot of young people now, the first place or first thought is from slavery to now. It's deeper than that. So I had to break the door down to get to, well, what was before that? Mm-hmm. And when I found out that, we're some of the baddest on the planet, not because of being Black or not thinking that we're better than anybody, it's the things that we accomplished. We had in our fold, the first known genius on the planet was Imhotep. And people look at, Hippocrates as being the father of medicine. Well, 2,000 years before this kid was born, Imhotep was doing brain surgery in Egypt. He was doing, he built the pyramids. He designed those. He was doing science, math, was one of the baddest mathematicians on the planet. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the Dogon people in Mali, they were the baddest astronomers out here. And everybody looking at the Frenchmen because they built the telescopes, that they were it. Well, before telescopes were even built, our people were building or telling about the multiverses, and they had it drawn on cave walls, and they didn't have telescopes. So how did they get that? Where did they get that from? That was a connection when our people have gone so deep in self and in their relationship with the Most High that he was revealing truths that we didn't know anything about. So my quest was, I want to find out who I am and where we come from. And knowing that we were indoctrinated and assimilated from birth here in this country. We never had the opportunity to be ourselves or to know what our purpose was in life, because it's always been shuffled around or, intentionally, misguiding us.
Yeah, I definitely understand where we're going with that. There's a major intent to lead us, keep us astray, that disarray, that disunion. I feel like it's come up a couple times. So talking about all of these great moments that we had, you talked about Imhotep in Egypt, you talked about the Dogon, we have some other things that we know that have happened up in here. Now let's talk about how we got to this point. What has happened to this Black pride? Because a lot of it seems to have, in some regards, fallen off. Now, there's like a resurgence. Let me, honestly, there seems to be a gap. There's of one side of us where there is a lot of Black pride, but lacking in the accountability piece. We're going to move to that later. But then there seems to be another side where there really is no pride in being Black. How do we get this divide here? Because I know at one point in time, it was booming.
You young, so
this is why I got to ask.
You may have missed it, but in growing up, when it says, and people kick the adage around all the time, it takes a village to raise a child. They say that, and want to lean on it, but they don't mean it. They don't, It also says the fall of a nation begins in the home of its people. So if there is no village, and then you can't teach what you don't know, then you're going to have that void.
Right.
You know, so in it, everybody in the community, everybody in the village, you belong to. You feel me? Even the neighborhood drunk, if they told you something right and you didn't listen and they told your people, or you were done in. You know, you can be disciplined by anybody in the village because everybody in the village knew that he belonged to us. And we can chastise him, you know. And I'm not talking about abusing children. I'm talking about putting you straight. They could do that. We don't do that anymore. Matter of fact, I don't even know that many villages that still left.
I think that part of losing that black pride has come because of chasing the dollar. Okay? Is that we want so much to have this and have that, and that we have neglected sitting at the knee of the grandmother and passing on generational information. And so not helping our children to understand that, you know, even for me with 5 children, I thought I was doing well with teaching them about black pride and about who they are. But I also noticed that I was also teaching them the importance of you have to have a job, you have to do this, you have to do that, and not really filling in that gap. And so I think that as parents and as a community, that we were chasing the wrong things, that we neglected certain things and areas when it comes to helping young people understand the importance of who they are and those who were before us. And not just the traditional ones, even those, like you said, within the neighborhood, those who were in your churches, those who were in the community, those things that they have done to help propel us to where we are, that we've neglected that.
Learning how to you're teaching them how to make a living and not how to live. 2 different things.
That's the word right there, all of that. So we're seeing more of the picture come together. You brought up that the village has gone away. And now we've heard that on so many occasions during these tough table talks that's a core thing that has to be addressed in order for we to move forward. And then you talked about how we are chasing the dollar and that essentially, and I'm paraphrasing now, but that our priorities have shifted.
Yes.
We've shifted away from a village to now we're trying to get this dollar so that we have power in this society that has continually sought to divide us. But we're not looking at that part when we're thinking about going to get the dollar. We're just thinking about, I need this money for whatever reasons, whether they be noble or not. Like, you know, people sell drugs because their kids need food, right? It's like you're poisoning your community, but you're trying to feed your daughter. I understand why. I don't agree with your methods. So now we got to get to this other piece, right? Because I might understand why we're doing some of these things, but we got to switch up the methods. So on that part, that's that accountability part. We've chased the dollar so much that we have hurt our communities and distanced ourselves. And in doing so, we've broken down the village. I think a lot of times, you know, what's going on, we break it apart and we try to talk about these things as though that one thing is the devil that we're facing, but it's all connected. So now, this accountability piece, what things do we need to be accountable for in order for us to rebuild the village and redirect our focus over?
Well, one of the first things I think is that I have to be accountable for me. That I have to take a really good look at who I am and what am I doing to make sure that this village that has been divided and torn apart, what am I doing to build it back up? Okay, that's one thing.
Okay.
I also think that we have to be accountable when it comes to our children with academics and making sure that they are strong in their mind and that we help them in that area.
The word says this about us. He said, the poor shall be with you always. Not that people have to be poor. What it's saying is that those that have refuse to give, because it showed us in word that people denied themselves their own desires and went and sold all they had and put into the pot so that everybody could have whatever's necessary, whatever's needed. And we've forgotten that because we're chasing that dollar so hard. I got mine, you get yours. I've been hearing that all my life. You know, you do you. I got me. But that's not how it works. The law of reciprocity, you know, you reap what you sow. You give, you'll get. So here it is. We're standing in opposition. I look at us as a people, and I'm hurt because the people that are in position, you know, the multi-million-dollar entertainers, the multi-million-dollar athletes, you know, even all the black churches, you know, I'm looking at, they're talking about us as a people, saying that we spend 1 trillion a year. So we're the mass consumers in this place.
Right.
We spend more money than anybody. So if we pooled our monies together, we could have our own banking institutions, you know, our own schools of higher learning, you know, to make sure that our children are being taught necessary stuff, you know, not just kicking it in, yeah, well, we're going to give you these. And I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm not, well, I'm blaming everybody. You know, I'm not singling out anybody. I'm blaming everybody. You know, when schools of higher learning were established in the beginning, you know, and we're going to talk about tough talk, you know, it was never about building us to be leaders. It was building us to be workers. Like schools were called normal and agricultural schools, teaching you how to be a farmer, a bricklayer, a carpenter, somebody to use your hands. They never prepared us to become doctors or attorneys or, you know, leadership roles. They didn't. That's the truth. So if we don't take it upon ourselves to ensure, you know, that turn that around, because it didn't start way back then, it's still going on now. You know, what we're teaching our children, we're telling y'all to get a good education, to get a good job, to make money. They don't tell you about, you know, becoming an entrepreneur,
Right.
you know, so that we could bring other people in to help them to build up.
So that piece of information right there, it's happening a bit more now, but also I think I'm seeing more of it now because I'm tuned into that world, right? So, but what you're hitting on is that financial literacy piece. A lot of us have not been taught it. We did not know it. It was kept from us. I mean, literally written into certain places so that we could not move into certain homes. It was written in the clauses in different areas, right? You cannot sell this house to black people. Even like to the people that bought it, they couldn't sell it to black people. So that, like, there were so many of these things that boxed us out that we didn't even think about learning that anymore. So there's a major piece of information we have to reclaim. Tax code in America is not set up for employees to be winning, but we keep teaching our kids what you said, that cycle. Go to school, get a good job, work, and then you work somewhere for 30 years and hopefully retire. But the world we live in right now, I already know I ain't about to get Social Security. That joint ain't gonna be here by the time I'm old enough for that. Or they're gonna push the age up. It'd be like 85 or something. So looking at all these things going on, we gotta fill in the gap a little bit more. So like, what are some other things right now that you feel like you would, you mentioned something earlier. So what are some things that you would like for your kids to know that you don't feel like you taught them before?
Well, I looking at the things about what I taught them, you know, other than the Black Pride, you know, with the accountability, I just think going back to that accountability piece, we're talking about what do we have to do? And Mr. Gibson mentioned the people who have, you know, our people who have the money and they have those things, but what are we doing with that to help our children? What type of programs do we have in place that if they want to be an entrepreneur, that we're going to show them, not just tell them, you know, we tell them to do things, but to actually mentor beside them, come along beside them and give them exactly what they need so that they can be successful, so that they can own their own, so that they can pass it along. You know, we talk about reciprocity, is that if we are going to give, then they're going to give, and it keeps going. But you talk about what happened, it stopped. Because, you know, long ago when our people had their own businesses, you had your nephew to come in and learn, and you teach them, or your child. And so we don't see that anymore. And so now they're lost, and we don't have the people in place who are going to sacrifice, because they're sacrificing time, they're sacrificing money. And so some of us are not willing to sacrifice, to pull our people into the place of lifting them up. And that, we talk about, the crabs in the basket mentality. And so it hurts me when our people don't want to help our people. That we have the opportunity, and there's a lot to go around. You're not going to miss anything.
Right.
And so what you're going to do if you help is that you're going to propel and push us further. So that bothers me, that we're not reaching out and helping, and that, we may help, but we just want to help a few, those who are in our family, but we're not ready to reach outside of our family. That we'll talk about the other people, but what are we doing to pull them in to actually help them?
So that's accountability piece right there that I think a lot of folk will have to take into account in their own lives. We're willing to talk about somebody, but we're not willing to help somebody. So if you're gonna talk about it, be about it. We have to stop condemning people that do not know, and then continue to blame them for these things. And it's like, if we know better and we see that they don't, we have to now start to take these steps in order to help them. So these are key takeaways, that while it still takes some time for us to build a big plan to fix what's going on, these are the little things we got to do consciously. So I appreciate you for that. We all got to take that accountability.
And it doesn't take much for one person.
Yeah.
If each person,
Yes,
we hear each one reach one.
There we go.
That's, make it your pledge that I am going to deliberately look for someone to help, and show them some things that they may not know.
Yes.
So that we can lessen that gap.
there's a word in our culture called Ubuntu.
Okay.
And there was an anthropologist that went into a village, and he walked up to the youth, and that's where it all begins, dealing with young people. He walked up to the youth and he said, in this bag, I have a lot of sweets, and I'm going to set it by the tree. And whoever gets to the tree first can have it. So when he said, get on the mark, get set, go, before the children started running, they grabbed each other's hands and they went together. So when he got to the tree, all of them were sitting down eating, and he asked one of the youth, he said, why did y'all come together? If you had gotten here first, you would have had all to yourself. And he said, what good would that have been? For me to have everything and nobody else to have nothing. That's a taught behavior. And see, and I have to constantly tell myself to keep me from being angry with my own people, that we have been back to indoctrinated and assimilated for over 400 years. So our people, our ancestors, and up to today, we have been working under the gauge of PTSD. You know, we have emotional and psychological scarring that we need to be taught different from.
That's a key thing right now, that more people are dealing with it, but still not enough. The mental health issues in the Black community. If we're going to talk about accountability, that's another thing that really has to be addressed, is that what you just talked about. There's so depression, the PTSD, people that grow up in certain situations, seeing trauma happen. Out here, the Better Is Now movement is honestly started. It was started out of trauma here in Portsmouth. That young girl, La Miracle, that was shot down out London Oaks, and then her boyfriend, Kasim, that took his life like a week later after that. This is a tragedy. Yeah. This is a Shakespearean tragedy right here happening in our neighborhood. We gotta address that. And for a very long time, it has been swept under the rug. So we have to take more people to really accept, that we can talk about how we're feeling. So as a black man, one of the things that I feel like we have to be accountable for is addressing what manhood looks like. Because in a lot of ways, I think that it's been pretty toxic. Right? In a lot of ways that we as black men have been brought up is negative. Most of our role models are gangbangers and drug dealers. They're the people that sell poison to their communities with no concern for who gets hurt as long as they get paid. And it's like, I understand what the intent was. You were poor, you did not have, and now you want. You saw a means to get it. But that's a trap. And it's like, so we got to hold each other accountable for these things here and find some ways forward. And then you said it starts with the kids. We got to be able to talk to our kids and be real with them again, and really be able to have a hard conversation and say that there's another way. More of us as black men, we got to be there to talk to these kids, even if they're not our kids. Because while in some regards, it's a myth about like the absent black father, there are a lot of absent black fathers. So we still got to address that. And that's a big issue that we have right here. It's like we can't keep putting things onto our black women and then not holding up our weight. You know what I mean? And it's not all of us. It's definitely not all of us. But it's enough that we can see it's a big problem here.
Why is it a problem then? You know, you brought it out. It is,
yeah.
But why?
Well, we're talking about the village, and in a lot of ways, if we want this boy to grow into a man, he needs to see good men in his life. And if that's not what's being seen, other traits are going to be emulated. And then there, again, with the whole mental health aspect of it, with whatever trauma is going on, that man now having a child with this woman and leaving, that woman now has trauma to deal with because she's left to raise this child by herself. But then at the same time, she's her own person. And there was a relationship that she might have been hoping for that now has failed, and then there's something left over after that. So like, again, this is not for everybody, but I'm painting part of the picture, right? We're seeing a lot of this happen here. We're seeing trauma and trauma and trauma happen. We're seeing men perpetuate a particular cycle that hurts us in the long run. And I'm not solely placing the blame on us, but accountability. I am saying that we have to take responsibility for our part in that. At some point, you start to see as a man that what you're doing is hurting the people that you're involved with. And that...
I was going to say, but don't you think you have to be willing to admit it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not the man, but I'm just saying, are men willing to admit it?
Yeah. That's hard
for
a lot of men.
Yeah, it is. It is. But we got to deal with it. I think you're right. It is hard. So now comes the part where, as a man, you got to hold your friends accountable for the things that you're doing, that they're doing. If you see your friends slipping and you get into this village, we got to hold each other up. If I see that my friend is doing something that's dirty, I'm like, yo, bro, you can't be out here treating your girl like that. That's foul. I have to be the person to say something to him about that. It's like, or I'm not doing my job. He's not really my friend if I don't.
But even if it's not a friend, just a brother that you're going about your business and you seeing someone, disrespecting the sister or, abusing the sister, we have a responsibility of keeping the village intact, whether they belong to our particular village or not.
Yeah.
We have to not worry about, and see, I know what you said was, everybody's not built for or will not do, because I believe everybody is built for doing opposite of what we do, and the Most High teaches us that we're supposed to be change agents in this life that we live. So if we don't dare to stand up and be that salt of the earth or to be that light in the life of the world, then what's the need for him saving us? bringing us to a place of reckoning and revelation to be those fire starters. I go to prisons and I go into the hood and deal with gangbangers, and I know these brothers off the hook. And when I share with them and I'm looking at them and the Holy Spirit is moving me, telling me they don't dig you. They really don't. And I'm keeping my eye on them. And I'll tell them, I'm your daddy. I'm not your daddy, but I'm your daddy. And they look at me, you ain't my daddy. I said, no. I said, a lot of elders are afraid of you, and they have every reason to be, because some of y'all out here hurting people. I said, but all of us aren't afraid of you, even though I know that you could hurt me. I'm going to still see you, and if you out of order, I'm going to correct you, because that's my place. You belong to me, whether you admit it to yourself or not. And you do what you do because nobody else has stepped to you to let you know that, hey, man, we care about you. We love you. No disrespect to you, And more of us need to be taking that kind of stance because, like you said, the sisters shouldn't have to endure that kind of, teaching with a lot of the young brothers. And I know some sisters that are more than capable of,
It was never to say that it never said that a woman couldn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's never said that a woman couldn't do it. I'm not disrespect single mothers out here. I know there's some that definitely are holding it down, but it's just to still say that, she didn't make that child most likely by herself.
True.
So somebody else is also responsible for what's going on there. And then we're supposed to help each other with that. We're definitely supposed to help each other with that. So
I agree is that we should be helping each other. And I think sometimes people are fearful. They're fearful of what is going to happen to them if I discipline or say something to your child, or if I say something to you, because then people will come out of their face in a certain way. But the best type of love is discipline. And so, yes, people may not agree with it or they don't want to hear it, but I believe that if we're planting a seed that is from truth, that is from love, that you may not see the fruition of it, but to stand by and do nothing is not acceptable. It just isn't acceptable. Because I believe if I say nothing, you think I agree with you.
Yes.
So that's why I like to add, we got to speak up. We're seeing these things that are going on. So, and so much goodness, right? So you're saying not just to your friends, we got to hold everybody that we see accountable to make our whole community better. That's major. That's going a step beyond. And then we got to make sure that we speak up and be willing to let somebody know what happened.
Yes, I agree. And that I think sometimes it's difficult to even speak up to our own, even your own age group, even in your own profession. Oftentimes I can see my colleagues and they will do things that are very inappropriate, not only just for students, but for their colleagues. And others will stand around and laugh. And I'm not laughing because now you're hurting my people. And so my job is to, whether you agree with me or not, and honestly, I'm not meant to be your friend sometimes. That it isn't about friendship. That it is about let's pull each other up to a higher standard and to a higher level. And that I just, those are things that are non-negotiables for me. Now, I can't say 20 years ago that I felt that way, okay? But as you grow, as you mature, as you learn, and when you see everything that's going on, is that, okay, this isn't good. This isn't right.
Yeah.
And that, because I'm going to be held accountable in the end, not just here on earth. I'm going to be held accountable for what I didn't do. And that is enough for me to know that, okay, you didn't speak when you were supposed to speak. So now this is what you're seeing happening when all you had to do was speak. So we have to learn to speak up. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Very uncomfortable sometimes.
That's across the board, too, with me. It's across the board. What happens in my neighborhood affect immediately my neighborhood, but sooner or later, it's going to affect yours, you know. And to my white brothers and sisters, that's my conversation. You know, the plight of the black man is on y'all too. You feel me? Y'all supposed to help speak out against the injustices. You're supposed to help because your people, through your not saying anything, your quietness, your laughing, at it, doesn't ease the situation or call or promote healing. It doesn't, and you are responsible too. We're talking about blackness, but we're talking about our humanness too, and that's across the board, the whole earth. We're connected. Whether we want to acknowledge it or admit it or not, we're connected. So whatever affect me, it does affect you. And I'm like, when you look at a neighborhood and you consider it to be at risk, and to me, all neighborhoods are at risk, when you look at them like that, well, y'all did this. You took those people from downtown and moved them out here because gentrification, you want these properties. So you're gonna move them all into another one spot and then think that you're gonna get different results. They're gonna do exactly what they did down here. They're gonna do that wherever you place them. So until you change your way of dealing with us and helping us to help ourselves, then you're gonna get what you get.
That's real. That's real. All right, so I know we could keep rolling all day. This has been amazing. Some of these key accountability steps that we have right here have been coming out. We got to be willing to reach out to more people. We got to be willing to speak out for what's happening to us so that way other people can be held accountable for what they have going on in order for us to rebuild this village, because that has been severely lacking. This has been a powerful, powerful conversation. Right now, and just go ahead and kind of just bring us to a close. Is there anything like last that you would like to leave off with for people to take away from what we have here? This conversation about pride and accountability. Is any last remarks, please?
I just want to say that what we need to do is that, yes, we need to be prideful of who we are, but we also need to be accountable. That if we want to have more pride, then we're going to have more accountability. And that starts with ourselves, that we have to do a deep self-assessment of where I am and who I am and what do I need to do to improve so that I can improve my community.
The Black Panthers and a lot of those groups back then, the media flashed them to be militants. But what they started was a lot of the food programming and talked about racial harmony, talked about the injustices being done, talking about economic, development. They were trying to teach those kind of mindsets, and we have broken away from, but we have community centers, we have the church. We got everything when I was a kid from the church. Y'all need to have a gathering place to discuss this, and this, and this, and this. But this is where we're going to be because we want y'all to be in the know. We don't do that anymore. We don't open the doors, to the community to let them know that, we're willing to teach, because if they don't teach it in our school system, then we need to teach it, someplace in our homes and in the church, sitting on the block, wherever they're gathering, like I'm popping up, with the old dude. Yeah, I'm the old dude, but I come to drop a few things and then I'm out, because it's my place, it's my responsibility.
And I know if you are willing to go and take that step, the people that you will see there, especially if you step to them in love.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
They're going to appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir.
They'll see that. There's this like saying that we have, right? Real recognize real. When they
Yes.
see that you are coming and you're being genuine, it will be accepted.
Yes.
So on these takeaways, I do truly appreciate you both. Dr. Jewett, thank you. Thank you for coming to shed your light. Minister Gibson, thank you as well. Man, this has been a powerful moment. So I appreciate you all for tuning in with us this evening. And I just challenge you at this point to be prideful in who you are and hold yourself accountable for your part in the world we see ourselves in. Better is now and we can make it now. Peace and power. You all do well.
Blessings.